Welcome to the Non-Essential Podcast. I'm Steve Gibson.
I'm Ben Matlock.
Yay!
Yeah, you sound like shit today, sir.
Oh, yeah. I'm barely alive, but I think I'm finally, getting towards the light at the end of the tunnel.
I think I'm on the come up. I think the doctor...
Yesterday morning, my throat was so sore that I think it was bleeding because, you'd occasionally cough up phlegm and there's blood in it, but you're like, I don't know if that's coming from my sinuses, my throat, or, my intestine. Somewhere along the line, there's blood getting into this stuff that's also ejecting from my face holes.
Yesterday, my doctor left the room crying. I think that's a good sign that there's hope.
Yeah, I know. I might be, following the Arthur Morgan path here.
Yeah.
But he died a hero, right?
Depending on how you played it. But, yeah, you gotta... So while we still have Steve here, before he succumbs to consumption out on the trail...
See, I would like that because I've always thought when I hear that they died of consumption... I picture alcoholism because you're consuming, it sounds like...
I picture, fast food.
Well, that too.
Yeah.
And both would apply to me. Tuberculosis would catch me by a bit of a surprise because...
Every Taco Bell death is technically consumption. So,
think inside the casket.
Well, as I was saying, we still have Steve here with us, on this show. We'll see if he can make it to 200. But on the Non-Essential Podcast, we tell each other stories, and they're about whatever the fucking whoopity-doo. And this week is a serial killer story, a real one. Because we were talking about him a couple episodes ago, and for all our talk about them recently, it felt like it had been a while since I brought a proper piece of shit onto the show. So today we're going to talk about Joel Rifkin.
Oh, I thought it was going to be Jeff Goldblum.
Notorious serial killer.
A lot of people don't know that about him, but it's out there.
I saw a movie he was in called Deep Cover, where he
was it just about a really thick duvet cover?
No,
he's just
but he's
taking a nap.
No, he's a drug dealer, and Lawrence Fishburne's a undercover cop, and it's a great movie all around. But Goldblum wears this way too big for him, fucking Matrix black leather jacket and stuff, and he's progressively trying to become a badass throughout the movie. And it's it's awesome. Highly recommended.
Yeah, I'm just trying to picture Goldblum as a drug dealer. I can picture him as a drug user.
Oh, it's great. He kind of he hits that point in every drug dealer movie where he's I gotta fucking kill my boss or he'll kill me. And his wife's trying to tell him you're rich, stop being a drug dealer. And he's I want my cake and I want to eat it too. And he just keeps repeating that. And it's fucking awesome.
But we've talked about that, not to distract you or derail you from your serial killer topic, but so many drug dealers, you can make so much money so quickly, and if they would just stop, they would never ever get caught. But they're nah, I need more.
I mean, yeah, that's what it's all about, is it's not... I mean, we talked about it a couple episodes ago about how rich people in general have this this fucking gluttony for financial gain, where it's it's not even important to you anymore. You have enough money to last generations of your bloodline without a noticeable fucking lowering of their quality of life, but you keep doing it. You keep doing fucked up things just because it's...
To get more.
Yeah, because it's not about a better life and maintaining a better life. It's about taking and just constantly taking and winning because in their
Although
mind
maybe
it's
that's
just
why-
an economic game.
And maybe that's why I'll never get anywhere in life, is because I'm okay just like having enough.
Totally. So, that's the difference. Is just like tenacity. Like the social medias call it the grind mindset.
Yeah, I don't have that at all.
Yeah, and I have, it's fucking Sunday and I'm not getting out of bed until football.
Right.
Until football dictates I must.
Anyway,
so yeah,
serial killer.
Joel,
what was his name again? It wasn't Jeff Goldblum.
It was Cal Ripken. No,
Joel Osteen.
Joel Rifkin.
Joel.
Our buddy Joel, friend of the show, Joel Rifkin.
Yeah. How you doing, Joel?
Hey, Joel. You suck. Stop listening. So I'm honestly still a little hesitant about going into this guy because he's in like pretty much every way he hits that serial killer cliche bingo that we talked about, where it's like, a troubled teen grows up to hate women and he decides that the best way to handle that hatred is to become a fucking monster among society.
Yeah, so you mean one of those kind of serial killers where it gets really tough to decide if they're a bad guy or maybe a good guy.
Yeah, gray area.
Yeah.
Nuance, as Peter Molyneux would frame it. But I do think there are a couple noteworthy things about this jackass. But unfortunately it means we're going to have to tackle the fucking gross parts of these topics as well. So for any listeners, this is your, warning. If you don't like stories about murder, sexual assault, gore, or just general fucking inhumanity, one, thanks for listening for 197 episodes while we kept doing that. That's really impressive. Two, feel free to bow out now, and, we'll have something different another time.
All right, well, I'll be back next week then.
Yeah, Steve doesn't feel well. That's okay.
I'm the one that I can't handle.
We've said it before, but I'm still 70% sure you're a voice in my head. So I could probably solo this.
I would feel so bad for... I mean, it's already terrible to have that ailment where you hear voices, but if it was my fucking voice in somebody's head...
It's your voice with a cold.
Well, fair enough. I kind of feel like my voice with the cold is better than my regular, like, nasally voice, but...
It's a little more baritone, for sure.
Yeah.
So Joel Rifkin was born on January 20th, 1959, to two unwed college students who would put him up for adoption. 3 weeks later, he would be adopted by a New York couple, Bernard and Jean. They would also adopt a daughter 3 years later and move to Long Island. Like a lot of these fucking guys, Rifkin grew up kind of a social outsider. He was often the target of bullying and excluded from a lot of team sports and games because of a noted slumping posture, and he also kind of walked around awkwardly. Bullies would call him Turtle, and I have a shit posture and I walk weird too. I
was going to say that, but in the era that I grew up, if I got called Turtle, like Ninja Turtles were the thing. Like I would have been like, fuck yeah, I'm...
And you're just feeding the bullying there.
Yeah.
Because you would show up dressed like a Ninja Turtle and they would...
I've talked to so many people, they're like, high school was hell and school was hell, and I'm like, I had no problem with it, but I was a nerd, and maybe the problem was I was so fucking stupid and such a big nerd that I didn't realize I was being made fun of. Like, I just rolled with it.
I've always looked at high school in the frame of like, I was bullied, but I was also a bully. Like it wasn't a one-off thing. Like it was a constant, like, hostile back and forth. So high school is hell.
It's like Thunderdome. That's where you went to school.
Like, God damn it. As soon as we do a show, the fucking dog freaks out.
Yeah. Well, maybe there's a serial killer stalking your...
Shut up! That works. It never works. God damn it.
It just adds to the ambiance of our show.
Our Halloween episode, guest starring my piece of shit dog who needs to shut up. I forgot where I was. I'm so mad at her.
I don't know, something about serial killers in high school and how they go hand in hand.
Well, I was going to say, like, you shouldn't let your high school experience dictate your personality for the rest of your life, because as miserable as it is, and I relate to that, you need to fucking, like, it's very brief.
Yeah, and it's weird, though, because it does feel like such a major part of your life, and it feels like forever, like it is like the definition of your life. It's not, though. It's like once high school's over, like getting through it feels like an eternity, but once it's over, it's just like, oh well, that was pointless, and
yeah, it was just unpleasant,
right?
There's
plenty of time to get even more miserable after high school.
Yeah, wait till you fucking feel that grind mindset in the real world.
Right. Let that define
yeah. So yeah, he was a weird kid, and they wouldn't know it at the time, but he had dyslexia, which I feel like comes up a lot in these stories of people who are like, they think they're fucking idiots, but they have an actual like disability.
Yeah.
So
we're still bad about it, but yeah, unfortunately, even like up through like the recent decades, like if kids just couldn't learn, it was because you were stupid. Unless you had like a really, really, really obvious disability, like Down syndrome or something, then it was like, oh well, if you look normal and you can't learn, well then it's on you. You're an idiot.
Yeah. Like
there was very little credence given to all the different things that affect the ways people think and learn differently.
Yeah. So with being dyslexic, he had a hard time in school academically, even though he supposedly had 128 IQ, which I will say doesn't really mean shit. Like,
yeah,
I've met people with really high IQs who are dumb as fuck. Same thing academically. There are doctors who are goddamn idiots. Some of them want to be your politicians.
Yeah.
So he was isolated from his peers, and everybody kind of just thought he was an idiot. Even outside of sports, kids were fucking real dicks to him. Like, he joined the yearbook staff, and they stole his camera in like a week. So I'll give Joel this one concession, because I'm not going to give him much more after this. But even the fucking loser activities in high school shit on him. Like, you did fuck the yearbook team. Like, if I could have given him any advice, it would be bully the fuck out of the yearbook team. Because
right.
What a fucking lame-ass activity. So it's not an excuse for where he was about to go with it, but you start to see where, like, growing up is already pretty tough, and this was a social environment that probably would have fucked all of us up. Because, like, even those of us who are bullied, we usually have some tight social circle that, sort of helps us cope with, like, our problems and shit. But he didn't really have that.
Yeah.
So some people, in that situation would, like, throw themselves into the arts. Which I guess Rifkin did, but not correctly. Into his teenage years, he became obsessed with the Alfred Hitchcock film Frenzy, which came out in 1972. This is a mistaken identity serial killer thriller. I haven't actually watched it. I haven't watched a lot of Hitchcock, if I'm being honest. But because it doesn't have Jeff Goldblum in a trench coat being weird.
Yeah, most of because Hitchcock, didn't he... I thought he contributed to some of, like, the Twilight Zone stuff, or he had his own, like, shorter, like, kind of serialized stuff. Yeah. Like, I haven't seen Hitchcock's... I don't think I've watched a full... I guess at some point I know I saw Psycho, but yeah. I don't hardly remember it. But yeah, Hitchcock's is one of those that you're more aware... for me, I'm more aware of his works than, like, a fan of or watched them. Hitchcock Presents. That's what I was trying to think of. We did used to watch Alfred Hitchcock Presents. Like I said, that was closer to Twilight Zone stuff. But anyway,
So I haven't seen this, but apparently Joel Rifkin fucking loved this movie.
Yeah.
Particularly The Murderer. And he started having twisted fantasies about killing prostitutes himself, which is kind of a key point in that movie. Is the guy goes around strangling women. Around this time, his parents got him a car, and he would just start cruising around Hempstead and Manhattan to troll for prostitutes.
See, I've always been... I don't know how to word that. It's always weird to me because I'm 40 and I've been driving since I was 16, and I've never once, like, passed a prostitute on a street corner. Then again, I live in, like, central Ohio.
To be fair, you're not really looking for them.
That's true, too.
I'm sure if you wanted to find them, you could... Word of mouth in the right bar. Someone will tell you where to go. Don't ask me how I know that, but, you know. Attending community college in 1977, Joel rarely showed up for his classes or his various part-time jobs at that point. And instead, he would spend time paying for prostitutes, which, in my opinion, isn't a bad plan at that age, as long as you're not a fucking psychopathic murderer waiting to happen. But
how do you pay for the prostitutes if you're not showing up to your various part-time jobs?
There you go, because I was going to say, even if your intentions are pure, you're going to be fucking broke by the end.
Yeah, very quickly, that's my understanding, yeah.
And Joel would lose all his shit, which resulted in him constantly sort of bouncing in and out of his parents' house. So he's just in this fucked up spiral of no stability and no real interests outside these fucking dark fantasies he's developing. He would officially drop out in 1984 to become a full-time fucking freak, I guess. His first known murder...
Full-time fucking freak is one of the best disco-era songs, by the way.
Yeah. His first known murder would happen in March of 1989. Rifkin waited for his mother to leave on a business trip and picked up a prostitute that we only know was named Susie to bring back to his home. He then bludgeoned her with a howitzer artillery shell, which...
I don't think that's how you're supposed to use those.
Which is like, what the fuck? Like, why did they just have one of those hanging around the home? If you look up a picture of them, they're pretty fucking big. I don't mean like they're, human size, but that's a big fucking shell. It's not, and it's a artillery shell. So he beat her over the head and strangled her to death. Joel dismembered the body with an X-Acto knife and removed her fingertips and teeth with pliers so she couldn't be identified. He hid her head in an old paint can and stashed the rest of her body in garbage bags. He dumped the head and the legs in the woods of Hopewell, New Jersey, and the arms and the torso into the East River back in New York. It was a lot of effort to hide a body. Unfortunately for Joel, the head was just close enough to a golf course where a guy must have shanked his fucking drive and found it.
Do I have to play it where it lies? Damn it.
I'm surprised I haven't found a dead body the way I played it.
Yeah.
But Susie, like so many people trapped in the tragic prostitution circle, didn't have many people looking for her. People come and go in that.
Well, were they able to, even identify her at that point?
No. That's what I mean. It's like, they might have been able to find something if, people were looking, but...
nobody was like, oh, this woman's missing and here's this woman's head.
Yeah.
They're just like...
There's no fingerprints or dental records they can use to see if she's in the system, and nobody's looking for her, so she's just a Jane Doe, basically. And I mean, that's true today. That wasn't just a fucking 89 thing.
There's a story in the news right now about a woman in, I think, St. Louis area who's come forward and said that her recently deceased father, I don't know how recently, but said, oh yeah, by the way, he's killed 70 women. He used to kill 5 or 6 a month for 4 or 5 years straight or something, and made me help him hide the body or something like that. Yeah. And they're looking into it. They haven't verified those claims yet, but her story is that he would pick up runaways and prostitutes, and nobody ever fucking look for him.
Yeah, and he made the fucking kids help him fucking hide the bodies. And it's like, man, my dad did that. I would turn him in so fucking fast. Not even out of like moral obligation, just like, don't make me work for your shit.
You know how hard it is to dig graves? Jeez.
I'm not doing this, and fuck you.
No, I mean, it's easy, like say, this hasn't been verified yet, and B, it's easy to like criticize or look back after the fact, but I would imagine, I would like to think if I knew my dad was killing 5 or 6 people a month, even if I feared, like, oh, if I turn him in, he'll come after me, I would just fucking shoot him in his sleep. Like, he's my dad, but family, like, bonds only go so far.
I mean...
They don't surpass, like, murdering random people.
But that's a different thing for everybody. Like...
Yeah, I guess.
You know, there's a lot of these serial killers did have kids, and, like, hearing them talk about it, it's like, you know... It's because it's literally like, imagine the life you've lived with your dad, and then somebody comes up to you now and say he's been on a murdering spree, like the entire time you were growing up.
That's true too, because then it would be hard to just forget and erase all the other stuff.
Yeah, like
overnight.
Yeah, but that's, to me, the line is like, if you make me have to fucking handle your psychopathic baggage, there's no connection. I'm gonna fucking know you're a monster, and I'm gonna resent you for making me work. So unfortunately nobody could identify Susie. Joel would claim a second victim, Julie Blackbird, 1 year later. Again, he waited until his mom left town, which, like, man, for me it's stressful enough to like look at porn when people are away. Imagine trying to plan a crime.
Yeah, like oh, I forgot my cell phone. I came back for that.
Yeah, it's totally
okay. Don't go in the living room, kitchen, bathroom, or basement.
Yeah, you're just holding a handful of teeth.
Tooth fairy. That's my part-time job.
Yeah, no, these are mine, and you pull one of yours out. He beat Julie with a table leg and strangled her. He dismembered her the same as before, but this time placed the body parts in buckets weighted with concrete and tossed the remains into the East River and a Brooklyn canal. Rifkin would start a landscaping business in 1991, which is pretty hilarious when you consider he hadn't done fuck all with his life up to this point, which makes me wonder.
He's feeling like fulfilled. He's like, I am a success.
Like, I totally wonder, can I just like step outside right now and just shout, I have a landscaping business, and it's mine now? Like,
you really can.
Yeah, which is nuts. Because he hasn't proven he's good at fucking anything.
That's true.
But as you might have guessed, Rifkin used this as a front to stash corpses that he couldn't properly dispose of yet at various rented job sites. In 1991, he murdered more women. 3 names were noted: a Barbara Jacobs, Mary Ellen DeLuca, and Young Lee. Rifkin would strangle 17 women, I believe total, most being drug addicts and prostitutes. You know, the type of people, like we said, that are already hard to identify, made even harder by Rifkin's thorough dismemberment method.
Yeah, I still can't get over, you said, like, and I imagine, I don't know if he's done this for all of them, but you said the first one he dismembered with an X-Acto knife. Like,
yeah.
I probably couldn't cut through like a ear of corn with a fucking X-Acto knife. Like, they're really good on certain things. Like, I could see getting through the skin and the tissue, but like, once you get to the bone, I mean, I guess you're just cutting the joints, I guess.
It's an X-Acto sword.
Yeah.
My X-Acto Hanzo steel. So in June of 1993, Rifkin strangled Tiffany Bresciani, and then drove the body back to his mother's home, stopping at a store for a tarp and rope along the way. So he was already, by this point, you know, it's 93, he started killing supposedly around 89. He's already kind of fucking with his order of operations here.
Yeah.
And it would bite him in the ass. By the time he made it back to his mom's home, Bresciani's body was wrapped and concealed in the trunk, He moved the body into the garage, leaving her in a wheelbarrow in the summer heat for 3 days. He then...
I'll get to it later.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah. It'll keep.
I got some lawns
There's
to mow.
one thing we know about the human body. It keeps. It doesn't fucking rank. After 3 days, he loaded up the body into his truck to dump about 15 miles north of his home. This seemed like kind of alright business as usual for our serial killer Joel, except his truck didn't have a fucking license plate on it. So don't tell me that these killers are smart, because very stupid people can do very evil things, and most of the time it's a requirement to do very evil things.
True.
Police troopers noticed, as soon as they saw it, fucking truck doesn't have a license plate, and tried to pull Rifkin over. Now, a lot of ways you could try to handle this. Rifkin picked high-speed chase. I'm not sure how long the chase...
Well, I'm not saying that's not the route that I would pick, too. I mean, none of the routes are going to be good.
I would try, the Fargo bribery thing, where it's just have some dollar bills poking out of my wallet. And be like, I just want to be in compliance.
I mean, you could always just say it was compost, your landscaper in the back. I mean, I don't know how well she was wrapped.
That's just a new manure I'm trying. Fuck. I mean, they would know. I don't know what a dead body smells like, but I feel like they wouldn't be like,
as many stories of these as we've done, I think I would wager against the intelligence of the law enforcement.
Very fair point.
Pulling me over.
Very fair.
And I'm not saying they're all stupid. You very well might get the one that catches on, but you might get the one that helps you bury it.
I helped him bury this big bag of manure for him.
It's kind of weird. He didn't even take it out.
It was kind of weird, but it felt good to do something for the community.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how long the chase actually lasted, but Rifkin panicked and crashed into a utility pole in front of the local courthouse. So I imagine like 10 or 15 seconds. As troopers approached, they smelled the strong odor of Bresciani's body coming from the truck and took Rifkin into custody. Upon interrogation, Rifkin described all 17 murders, writing out the names he remembered, and sketching maps to help find the victims that were still missing. He was then transferred to Nassau County to prepare to stand trial. He was sentenced to 25 years to life for murder there, as well as reckless endangerment for the high-speed chase that never was.
At that point, that seems a little superfluous to just tack that on.
Well, we've talked about sentencing,
I guess you might as well.
And we're going to talk about it some more here, because he was then transferred to Suffolk County Jail, where he would get 2 more consecutive 25 to life sentences added on. I can't follow the math with this story for how many actual years he was sentenced, but it might have been as much as 203 years before he would be eligible for parole. At which point, we've said it before, but just call it a life sentence. You're making my brain hurt.
I mean,
there's no parole.
Well, that's the thing. If you do it without parole, I don't understand the point at that point. But
so, you're going to dangle the carrot, and one fucking serial killer out of billions is going to be
maybe it's just to be a
I'm going to make it
the
to
judge.
203.
It's just testing to see if the judge has ever visited any of these prostitutes. The one murder they only give him 2 years for, the rest are 25 to life. It's but for the murder of Julie, she deserved it. 2 years for that one.
Yeah. Some of these also get lumped into the same murder trials and stuff, so...
It's interesting to me. He gets caught with one body. He's like, "You got me. I killed all 17." They're like, "What?"
Well, I mean, we'll talk about that a little bit here, because it is an aspect of some serial killers, but we'll get there. So Rifkin, at his sentencing hearing, apologized for the killings and admitted he was a monster, which, well, at least you're big enough to admit it. actually, that doesn't help anything. Fuck you. But Rifkin, he didn't do so hot in prison. He got into a lot of fights with other inmates. Officials decided Rifkin was a disruptive presence and placed him in solitary confinement at the Attica Correctional Facility for 23 hours a day over the course of 4 years.
Huh.
He would sue the prison in 2000 for this, but the court ruled in favor of the prison. In 2002, this was kind of weird, and this happens a lot as well. He would appeal 9 of the murders. This appeal went nowhere, and I don't fucking get, because that's still 8 murders you're getting life for.
Right.
Like, you're not getting out. Fuck. Like, why waste anyone's time, including yours?
No, and I've seen it. If he was sentenced to death or something, sometimes they'll appeal some of them to just try to, because they can't. I don't think they can execute you if you're currently like in an appeals process for a different crime. Maybe they can. I don't know, but sometimes they'll do that. I think sometimes they do it just because they have nothing else to fucking do, and they want to stay. Like, they want the attention or something.
Keep talking about it, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's possible. Either way, it was fucking ridiculous. Rifkin is still alive. Back in 2011, he talked about the murders, and he kind of described the compulsion of it, but also talked about the extensive research he did about disposing the bodies to hide identifiable evidence. He also stated the obvious, which, he targeted prostitutes because they moved around a lot and were on the margins of society, which made them easier victims. But what's weird to me is, like, serial killers always describe it as this compulsion, right? This thing they have to do and they can't control it, but they put so much fucking work into it. Like, there's a lot of stupid shit in this Rifkin story, but when I was putting all these notes together, I just kind of walked away feeling troubled by it because, like, they don't have the will to stop it, but they damn sure have the passion to make sure they can keep getting away with it.
Well, to a point, because he clearly, like, started off, if he would have, like, kept being as careful as he was in the beginning, he probably would have. There's always something that happens that
there is a decline in
slip
like
up.
Cockiness for sure, or just
or sometimes I think it's that
they
they want to get caught, because part of it, and this may be where you were talking before with where you're going with it, but like if he idolized this character in this movie that was a serial killer, part of that is people have to know you're the serial killer. Like,
yeah,
I mean that'd be like me saying I'm the richest man in the world, but never telling anybody I have any money. Like, eventually, that's not fulfilling.
I think there's probably cases like that, but I think in a lot of cases, and I think this is the case for Rifkin, is if you start that way where you're very methodical and stuff, and you keep getting away with it, like, I think just gradually you start to think you're bulletproof, and you become less this, like, really, strategic serial killer, and you just gradually become, like, more of a victim of your own bloodlust, and you're just, it's almost animalistic, and you haven't been touched yet, so you feel like you're never going to be touched.
Well, and part of it's not untrue. Because that's one of the terrifying things for me when I watch these documentaries on serial killers. The scary ones to me are people like him that just target random people. Because the truth of it is, if you truly just kill random people, I don't think it'd be that hard to get away with it. You're going to get away with it until just some happenstance. There happens to be a witness that you didn't know was there, which you can control that a lot by how careful you are, or some little random piece of evidence that you never thought of. But truly random, because, and we've talked about it, we've watched a lot of these crime shows, most murders track back to somebody that the victim knew.
Yeah.
That's how they get caught, is you just comb through.
Playbook. Yeah, if you're a detective.
So you comb through everybody that they knew. And if you literally didn't know them, and then, we've said 1 million times in this episode alone, add to it that it's somebody that society already kind of overlooks. They're hard to track because they move all the time. The sad part is everybody acts like, oh, these are people that society forgot. That's not true. Most of them have friends. Most of them have people that are concerned when they show up, that when they disappear, just nobody takes it seriously because they're like, oh, well, they were a troubled person and they've run away before, this or that. And the people that truly know them know something terrible probably happened, just nobody really listens and there's not a lot you can do about it. So anyway, my whole point is, they probably get away with it so many times, and I think even they start to realize, like, hey, I don't really need to take all these steps. And honestly, in this case, he would have killed more if he took the one step of putting a fucking license plate on the car you're driving.
Even if he drew one on paper and taped it, like, that would have been at least an attempt.
And that's something... you probably aren't really aware of it because I would never think about it. But where I live here in Ohio, and it gets blown out of proportion by the media and law enforcement because they like to crank it up for funding to pump it with this and that. But Ohio is a major thoroughfare for drug trafficking, just because, and so are the states to the sides of us, because our interstates run from East Coast to West Coast, and it comes right through fucking middle of Ohio. So we get all these stories every year of like, oh, they pulled over this car with like $800 million worth of cocaine. And the reason they pulled it over is it was going 120 down the highway with no license plate and illegally tinted windows. And it's like, what the fuck? Yeah. If you're running $80 million in drugs, drive a fucking minivan with a valid tag on it and nobody will ever fucking pull you over. Like,
drive the fucking speed limit and use your blinker.
But like you said, they start to think they're bigger than it, and it's fucking mind-boggling. And that's the whole premise behind Breaking Bad, is if somebody initially starts out with like half a brain, it's like, hey, I could run this scam, and then it always goes too far. But it applies to serial killers too, scarily enough.
Yeah, I was telling you either last episode or the episode before about that show, The Patient, which just wrapped up this week, and it's an excellent fucking show. I think everyone should watch it. But they did an interview with the creators of it afterwards and talked about the serial killer character in it and like how fucking sloppy he is, because he just chokes people with like his bare hands most of the time. And they're talking like, how does he get away with it? And the creator's like, it's the reason it's kind of like anything else where it's just everybody has the blinders on and they're in their own fucking worlds. But, it's like the shows takes place in a smaller town, and he's not in the criminal system either. So,
right.
And he's picking people. A lot of them he knows or he meets, but they're essentially random crimes, because it's not like, like tight,
yeah, it's not somebody circles. That's like, oh, they dated this person or they had a business dealings with this person. It's just like
in the show, he's going after people who were rude to him. He's like a health inspector for restaurants, and he's going after people who were rude to him at restaurants. It's
I like that now. That makes it even better. Like, it already sounded interesting, but now I'm picturing Hugo from Bob's Burgers turning into a serial killer, which totally tracks if you've ever watched that show. Like, I could see that.
It's outstanding. Fuck everything I talked about. Just go watch that show. It's way better serial killer content than what I did. But just that thing of like, that's the fucked up deal with serial killers, is like, you kind of have to wait for them to fuck up. And they will. Sure as fucking shit. They will screw up usually.
Usually, or else they turn into like the Zodiac Killer. I mean,
yeah, but fuck, for all we know, that guy maybe did get caught, and just nobody tied him to the Zodiac shit.
Well, that's the thing too, is like you said, it's the same deal. If this guy got caught with this body and just said, oh yeah, it was a prostitute that tried to rob me and I beat her to death, he would have done 10 to 20 years probably, tops, because murder sentences, they're so fucking random to me.
Yeah.
And they would never know, hey, we caught the serial killer. So you're right. I mean, the Zodiac Killer could have been caught for who knows what. But
I mean, you get the occasional stories about like serial killers going quiet, sometimes for decades, but I tend to believe that most can't. Like they can't just turn off for that long.
Well, there's generally some physical reason, and a lot of times, and I've read a lot of cases where this is where it's like, oh, they went quiet for 10 years and then they started killing again. And it turns out it's because they were in jail for something for 10 years.
Yeah.
And then they got out, or they moved away, or their situation changed. They very rarely just decide, I'm done killing for now.
Yeah.
And then start again, or don't start again. Like, I'd be curious if there was ever a case of a serial killer that killed over like a 4 or 5 year span and then was just like, I've had enough.
Time to go legit. So
yeah. I'm not saying it hasn't happened. I don't know, but it seems.
I mean, that's the point of it, though, right? If that did happen, we would never know.
Well, right.
So, until I crack that case,
I'm gonna be watching the Spokane area news real closely for the next. Spokane, is that how you guys say it out there?
It is Spokane.
Yeah,
it's Spokane-y. We drink our kokanee here in Spokane.
I thought you snorted your kokanee.
I do that too. I colon rolled that. So that's the story this week. That's
Is it infuriating to you as it is to me how the stories always start with like, oh, these kids picked on me in school, so I decided to take it out on women. It's like, wait a minute, like,
I mean,
your victim group doesn't really overlap with the people that victimized.
But it's rarely, and that's something else the patient touches on that I think is brilliant. Like the things that abused you, like those aren't usually, or that abuse the people who abuse serial killers. Those are a lot of times just excuses, like not to belittle like trauma and childhood trauma.
Oh no, yeah, there's definitely a lot of that, but
I mean the reason like why you take it out, why they take it out on women usually is, or people who will just be hard to trace, easy targets, is like it's usually the driving force behind all fucking teenage mopey assholishness, which is sexual frustration. And sometimes the patient handles it a little different as far as like what his motivations are, but they spend time talking about his like troubled upbringing, but it's like a lot of kids got abused and they didn't all become serial killers. So
I guess that's probably true, because I always pictured it, they were bullied and this is like their revenge, and it's probably not, because I think probably the more common thread is that I would imagine a lot of the people that become these killers almost believe the bullying, like believe that maybe they deserved it and that they're worthless, and that maybe the killing's what gives them some control over somebody else. So it's maybe not taking out like revenge for the bullying, but more like living a part. I don't know.
It's more like it's more like channeling. Like, yeah, it's always about power. And, like if you want to tell me that was a factor because they felt powerless when they were kids and being, abused or bullied, like I can see that, but it's ultimately just like this intoxicating drive to be in control of somebody else. And it comes from this very basic thing of just, you do not see people as people, you see them as objects for you to toy with.
Yeah.
And that's, it's easy to say that, it's very hard to fucking diagnose and treat that, because there's just something preventing them from seeing people as fully fleshed out human beings. So yeah.
Yeah. Now my mind's wandering to a different place. I want to find the story of the, not serial killer, but the kid that was bullied in school, and he goes on to like lure prostitutes to his mom's house while she's gone and gives them atomic wedgies and swirlies.
Yeah.
And then, yeah,
Yeah.
steals their lunch money. He's a serial bully.
That would get you. That would get them killed very quick.
Yeah.
So,
Nobody's gonna believe you. You're a lady of the night.
he's being polite after
yeah.
robbing him. It's like, no one's gonna believe you. You're a classy lady. So yeah, that's it this week. Thank you for listening. I am done talking. I mean it.
Me too.